All right, Luka Nation, a quick pre-holiday episode with Mr. Cage Lawyer, meme god, apparently. In this year, well, welcome back to Lucas Tigers and Bronzo Mai, wishing you guys all an amazing holiday season.
Episode 5,327. Soon enough.
884.
We'll get there.
It's good reps, man. 10,000 hour rule. You know, they once said there's an interview with Kobe talking about, his work ethic, right? And he said, if you wake up 4 to 6 and you train at that time frame, then 10 to noon, then 4 to 6, and then one more session at night, think about how much more work I've done than the next guy. And in 3, 4, 5 years, no matter how much work that guy does in the summer, there's no way they could catch up. And honestly, there's been times where I definitely haven't wanted to do this podcast. And thanks to you, I just did that next workout, right? I just did that next show. Sometimes we get so far ahead of ourselves. It's like, dude, let's just show up and do this one episode as well as you can, even if you don't feel like it's going to be your best performance. And now, like, looking back, because Cage, if you look back at this year, I had surgery, I moved from Mexico to Florida. I made money in NFTs and I lost a lot of money in NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to even think about all of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like showing up to the next day, I got to give you a lot of credit. People see you as like a jokester, meme god, as I said, but you're extremely consistent, and you've held me accountable, and you've raised the standards of what our team does. So as we kind of wrap up this last week, it's a kudos to you, man.
Listen, the podcast, the network, the content, the conversation, it's all evolved. The hobby itself has evolved. So, you can't stay the same as you were. But yeah, the one thing the folks out there listening can count on is a daily dose of something from the network.
I find it interesting. A lot of the business conversations we're having, there's a lot. So some companies are nervous about 2023. Some people are on the verge of panic, right? There's a lot of angst in the environment. But I actually feel that not the best, but the companies or the people or the network, whatever word you want to use, that have put in the work the last 2 years, I think they're going to benefit from a downturn, because what happens, I think, in a recession is the best begin to gobble up market share, right? Yes. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is going to happen with breaker culture, or the breakers that have had just, hand over fist made money over the last 2-3 years? And this might be the first cycle that they're experiencing where demand is subsiding, less, wax is dropping, card prices are dropping, right? So they scaled up these operations. What do you think is going to happen?
Consolidation, departure. I think you're going to have, just like everything else, some larger folks who are doing it. It's funny. I messaged somebody I know who breaks. This is going to tell you how terrible it is. It's Christmas time. People should be having dreams of sugar plum fairies dancing in their heads. I actually had a dream last night that someone we know who breaks and does a pretty good job at it was bought by Backyard. I dreamed that. Do you hear this wind, by the way? It is crazy how loud the wind is. It's insane. I think it's going to break my window. It's nuts.
It's easily the craziest weather I've experienced, because when I arrived, I flew in this morning. It was like 55 and rainy. It's actually freezing outside.
Yeah.
It's
22
cold. Degrees.
It's really cold. It's very cold. And yeah. So anyway, I think there'll be some consolidation. I think, look, everybody would love to be a card distributor, but there's only a handful of them, and the ones that are really good at it, they gobble up market share. They grab some of the smaller folks. They become bigger. That's kind of the way that it works, right? And I think it's not just breaking, right? I think it's going to be everything else. See, breaking is easy, right? It depends on what kind of breaker you want to be. You want to break, you can go on Instagram and break. You're not going to have the audience. You're probably not going to sell for as much, right? But then you bleed breaking into social selling and the social selling platforms that host the breakers. And I think even there's an interesting, roadmap ahead for those guys. We're talking about the Whatnots, the Loops, the Card Shop Lives, and those folks. And it's going to be interesting. I think the consolidation actually will probably occur with them as well. Trying to bring brands onto their platform, trying to create some form of exclusivity. Only break on our platform, only break with us, and trying to go after the bigger.
Aren't they set up for the most success? Because unlike typical companies in the hobby, they're considered tech companies, right? Because they're tech first.
Mm-hmm.
If you think Drip,
Yep.
Loop, and probably the biggest by a mile, whatnot, and Card Shop Live. They're tech companies, so they get funded like tech companies, right?
Yep.
Because you have that huge $1 billion potential payout, but they're also in a really unique position because they take most tech companies don't make any revenue, right? Like Facebook didn't even make revenue, right, for a long time. But these guys, they get a percentage of every sale. So
Yep.
yeah, maybe the average volume or average price of a buyer is less, but they might be buying way more volume now.
Yep.
So I actually think these social selling companies are very well set up to ride through a recession.
Yeah, some of them better than others, but yeah, I don't. When we talk to folks, they don't seem afraid of the coming year or 2 years or 3 years, even with market downturns and or potential continuing downturns.
And if you guys are listening to this, Whatnot, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. All the games this week are Saturday, not Sunday. Saturday morning, 11 a.m. December 24th is when we're doing the King. The King is back.
We'll do some props. We'll do some plays. I'll talk about the Raiders. 50 years ago, the Raiders played the Steelers. The Steelers were 2-point favorites against the Raiders, and the Steelers covered because Franco Harris cheated and had the immaculate reception. That ball hit the ground. I don't care what any Steeler fan wants to tell me. And the Steelers play the Raiders this week, and the Steelers are, again, a 2-point favorites, 50 years in the making. We'll see what happens. If the Steelers lose, it means officially Mike Tomlin's streak of never having a losing record will come to an end. He has to win out to finish 9-8. They're 6-8. They were 5-8.
Oh, right, because they have an extra game.
The extra game. 8-8
Wow.
used to be able to get you there, but now you got.
So who's your pick?
My lean on the game, as long as T.J. Watt is playing, I go with the Steelers.
He's your favorite player. How do you not have a T.J. Watt jersey?
They're 5-2 in games where he has started. I mean, that's a very far cry. That means that they're 1-6 in games where he's not there. That's a huge difference maker in games.
One defensive lineman.
Yeah, well, I mean, one defensive lineman who's great at the run and at creating pressure and disrupting the other team's offense. It can have a big difference.
I'm saying one defensive. Obviously, he's fantastic. He made the Pro Bowl. I think even missing that many games.
I know what you mean, man. Yes, normally you would think that on a team sport like that, one defensive lineman can't make that much of a difference, but he does.
I was surprised on Instagram to see all the support for Zack Wilson, but my bigger question is how do teams miss so bad?
I mean, how many of the people supporting him were his mom's friends?
I think it's people who might have bought his cards.
You know what it is? That's part of it. But also, the people having the most difficult time this year are New York sport fans. The rest of the world is turning on New York sport fans.
Is that
because,
right?
Yeah, even in the broadcast last night, right in the very beginning, Zack Wilson threw a ball right into the ground. Now, he threw a couple balls into the ground last night that he shouldn't have, but this particular one, not his fault. It was a screen that was covered, and he threw the ball at his running back's feet. Fine. Live to fight another day. You're not going to complete that. And even if you do, you're setting your running back up to get lit up and lose yards. So you throw it away and you move on to the next play. The boo birds out in full force. Boo, boo, boo. And I don't remember who it was announcing the game. It's on the Amazon broadcast, right? It was like, oh man, listen to these fans. They're letting you know how they feel about Zack Wilson right off the bat. And that wasn't even like a bad play. Like he didn't even do anything wrong. And so it's interesting, man. They boo Aaron Judge, remember that whole, story?
That is absurd.
Yankee fans, they're the worst. New York fans are the worst.
Ridiculous.
New York's a very different place to play. But show me the player who has left New York and has succeeded elsewhere because of the fans, not because of coaching, the whole deal, because of the fans. So there are a couple of them that are recent examples that come to mind, like Geno Smith. Dude made the Pro Bowl, right?
for
He
him,
made the
man.
Pro Bowl. That I
I
think
loved
is
his quote
more.
this year. Did you hear what he said? Like he was like, "My worst day is someone else's blessing." So he's just grateful. Remember after like he had a terrible game and he had that perspective. That's maturity.
I mean, Sonny Gray was another one, but I want to talk about Geno Smith for a second
Okay.
because you and I have had an ongoing 800 plus episode debate over coach versus player. And the one that comes to mind most of the time is, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And we were like, well, clearly, it's the player because Tom Brady left, and the first year he left him, he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, and, Belichick sucks and blah, blah, blah. Can I say that this season I have gained an appreciation for Pete Carroll?
Sure.
Not just because of what he has systemed in place and built with Geno Smith, but think about Russell Wilson has taken the biggest about face probably in NFL history.
Literally.
And I think part of that is that Hackett is scheming for Aaron Rodgers and got Russell Wilson, who can't throw the ball like Aaron Rodgers does. But yeah, I mean, this was one of those times where if you take a look at it, you got to give the coach a little bit of credit. Doesn't really help for Cards.
Do you know Russ's stats for the year?
Yeah, they're terrible.
11 touchdowns.
How many picks?
6 interceptions.
Man, that's pretty
11
terrible.
touchdowns. That's not a touchdown a game.
No,
it's shocking. Coach is one thing. It's mentorship. It's guidance. It's one thing. Cage has taught me a lot is sequencing. It's before you could get to step 5, before you could run, you have to walk. And I think when you see it a little bit in the NBA with Wiseman, right? I love basketball, so that's my thing. But like you see it with actually you see it really well with Trevor Lawrence, and you see it really poorly with Zack Wilson. He comes in and they want him to play, right?
Yep.
But he's not physically at elite level, right? I don't think he's as strong as he could be. Nope. He could train. But what do you do first, right? Do you get this guy and say, hey, just get stronger and more athletic, and then we'll learn the playbook? Or do you say, let's learn the playbook and we'll get stronger? Because I feel like sometimes what happens is, like you said, he was a one-year wonder, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like drinking out of a fire hose, right? You have the New York media from one standpoint. You have to be a leader, but you're not ready to be a leader yet. You're also not physically ready. He's not like he comes out and he's physically ready, and he doesn't know the playbook. So when you have all these things
and he was
thrown
injured
at you
to start the season, throw that in the mix too.
Even
more.
And then you're like, at 21, 22, how do you know what to do first, right? And that's where you need a coach, a mentor, someone put their hand over your shoulder and say, right now, Zach, for the next year, let's just get good at X. Let's just execute X, Why did Tua succeed this year? It's because his coach literally ripped out pages in the playbook and said, let's simplify this thing, right? Well, we'll add all that stuff. I think whatever word you call that, mentor, coach, whatever it is, that's so important. And I actually like Salah. I think Salah gets the guys to run through a wall, but
he needs somebody to create an offensive scheme for him. He's clearly not an offensive coach. He needs somebody to be better at. So, I mean, think about it. Whatever they're doing in Jacksonville is playing now to Trevor Lawrence's strengths.
They listen to our podcast. Move him out of the pocket. The
system that the 49ers have in place, which I think is the same system that Hackett is trying to run in Denver, but can't do it, doesn't have the weapons, doesn't have what the Niners have, offensive line, now running back, the whole deal. It's obviously a good scheme because look what they're able to do. Trey Lance never learned to dance and then broke himself and pissed his pants. Then you had Garoppolo, boom, in the system. Great system quarterback. He may leave and go somewhere else and absolutely shit the bed. But you put Brock Purdy in, Mr. Irrelevant, good player. I mean, obviously drafting the NFL, I can't do that. So I'm not going to crap on Brock Purdy, but put him right in and boom, plug and play, right? The systems scale, like you always say. Dude. So here's the fun. The Jets don't have that. And I got to tell you, their defense, they looked a little pedestrian last night, if I'm allowed to say that. Give up like a 96-yard drive. They had to create some turnovers. Yes, they held them to most of the field goals
too, which is like a defensive.
But I mean, they were not the juggernaut that they're supposed to be. Their offense has weapons. Now, they lost Breece Hall. But, I like Michael Carter. He's, a decent enough running back, but they lost Brees Hall. Garrett Williams, right? Is that his name? Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. He's very, very good. Was a USC guy, I think. Very good wide receiver. So they have the weapons. The Jets, if the Jets can sign a quarterback, they should. I know it's given up on Zack Wilson. I know it's he's only 2 years, but they could probably get something for him. I mean, look, they got something for Sam Darnold from the Panthers. But that's why they should.
There's
play
always
him.
someone shopping for a quarterback.
They shouldn't pan him too bad because they move him. Bring somebody else in. There's going to be free agents. There's going to be people available. There will be quarterback. There'll be a whole bunch available, I believe, in this offseason. And the Jets are one of those teams. I'm not a believer in the Jets or the Giants. I've said that since like week 4 when they were 7-2 and 6-3. They were outperforming, overperforming in the beginning, and and teams revert to the mean. That's what's happening with those guys. The Jets didn't beat the teams they needed to beat. They didn't beat the Lions last week in a game they should have won. They didn't beat the Jaguars. They probably are a better team. They didn't beat the Patriots either time. There were a bunch of games that they didn't close out that they could have, and they'd be in a much different position right now if they had closed those out. From a card perspective, I saw an interesting story post today. Hey, you picked the wrong guy. It was a New York one, and it was like, hey, you picked the wrong people. Zack Wilson, that was the wrong quarterback. You should have picked Daniel Jones. And I'm like, are people really
sure about that?
Investing in Daniel Jones? I mean, I think we're seeing the ceiling on Daniel Jones right now, by the way. I think that, this was a big year for him. I talked about this, the beginning of the season, how, he's got to go from being able to not lose games to be able to make plays to win games. That's the difference, right? And, that Giants team could potentially make the playoffs. I don't think he has the skill set yet to make the throws. Like those fade throws, make those throws that are, they have to be in there. Go ahead.
I think there's 2 quarterbacks that are positive from a card perspective this year. And I think it's Jalen Hurts is far and away one. And I think 2 is 2. Mahomes is down, Allen's down, Herbert.
I would bet they're both probably coming back now also because Hurts is injured and Tua has started to lose. This is a huge game this week. Tua plays the Packers, who are still alive. The Packers if they win out and they need like 2 of 3 things to happen. They need like the Seahawks to lose, the Giants to lose. There's like a couple things they need to happen in there, and they're not mathematically eliminated yet. If they lose to the Dolphins, obviously they're out. But that's a huge game for the Dolphins now too.
I will say, and it's hard to generalize, parity is not good for sports cards. Because if you look at, there's parity in basketball, parity in baseball. I don't even know if there's a single basketball player that's up this season. Maybe
because what have we said? Cards are momentum based.
Yep.
Right? And you want to buy into somebody that has sustained and continued momentum. Right? Breaks in momentum are never a good thing. When you have parity, there's usually breaks in momentum. Not long, winning streaks, not a bunch of people who are going to have those 5 or 8 or 10 games of 30 plus like LeBron is having, like Zion had, and that kind of stuff.
I think it's partially because of the liquidity thing. Like, let's say Ja and Zion play, right? And Ja's on a 10-game winning streak, and you're like, okay, finally I have momentum. Well, let's say Zion beats him, and Zion has a huge game. You can't just go like a stock and open Robinhood and sell all your Ja and now put your eggs sell all your Ja and put all your eggs in the Zion basket. It takes time. It takes 1 to 2 weeks. So that's an interesting, maybe I don't want to say it's a lesson. It's a framework that I'm going to test over the next year to see. Parity is not good for sports cards.
Well, I mean, you have 2 different points there. The parity not good for sports cards means it's hard for somebody to get so excited about somebody that it creates a big flash of demand that makes it easy to then, your second point, liquidate. And don't give them too much credit, but that was a comment we got on one of our recent posts from Ziggy, talking about how cards are not stocks and how you have show me that you can liquidate 100 PSA 10s of somebody immediately. I think that's the point you're trying to make. And it's not as easy as that. You could do that with stocks, round lot, boom, and then move it into something else. It's not the same in sports cards. It is that little bit of a difference between sports cards and stock. But if you have momentum and you don't have that parity and you have a Zion flying like this or last year Ja flying this, it is a lot easier to liquidate. So, Interesting stuff, man. Parody is definitely the opposite of what you want if you're investing in sports cards, you know? And you could even say year-over-year consistency, right? Last year, if you wanted to be safe, if you wanted to ride the momentum, you bought Steph Curry. The team was overperforming. Then he was breaking the three-point record. Then it looked like they were going to go to the playoffs. And then all of a sudden you had a title. You know where the champs sit right now in the West? Outside the playoffs, looking in. That's an interesting little ride, right? With Curry hurt. And Clay not playing, and when he does play, losing his mind.
Is Clay Hall of Famer?
It depends what he does. He is not a sure shot Hall of Famer right now,
Wow.
I would say.
How much do you respect or rate someone for knowing their role? Because if you make Clay a number one, no way he doesn't have a good career. But he knew his role from the day one, and his ego never got in the way, and he shined in his role. I would say he's the best. I think it's something we respect Scottie Pippen for too. Right?
I mean, is Dennis Rodman a Hall of Famer?
I would say Clay was way more impactful than Rodman in his role. Yeah.
Really?
Rodman was very good, but
I mean, championships with multiple teams.
Well,
multiple championships.
That's an effect.
The best at what he did. The absolute best at what
rebounding
he did.
and defense. Rebounding and perimeter defense would be.
Rebounding specifically would be enough. I mean, getting second chances for the players that need it. It's a very different player. It's a tough comparison. But when you say, hey, Clay knows his role and does his role well and won championships and scored some points. I mean, like Rodman didn't score as many points. He wasn't shooting threes, but he won championships. He knew his role. He won championships and played that role to all-star level multiple times.
3 and D, being able to touch the ball for a split second, shoot 45% from three. He averaged over 20 points per game until he got injured. He was over 20 points per game from 2014 to 2020 or 2018, maybe 2019. Over 20 points a game.
How many people?
Top three perimeter defender in the league, hands down.
Right. So 2014 to 2019, so 5 years, good defensive player, averaged 20 points a game. But here's the thing, right? That's not a long enough stretch.
Agreed.
So that's why I say it depends on what he does going forward now. And do me a favor and pull up the scoring totals and tell me how many players in the league right now are averaging over 20 points. There's too many. They're not all going to be Hall of Famers. Friggin' Kyle Kuzma is well above 20. Dude's having a great year. That's not a Hall of Famer, even if he does it for the next 5 years.
The amazing thing, and the thing with Clay that if you had to watch him again, it's how little hit the ball was. He had the ball in his hands too.
I get it, dude. He's a great player. I mean, he's mad he wasn't in the top 75 players of all time, and I can understand that. He's been a part of championship teams. To me, he's Pippen on welfare. I get it. Yeah.
He does two things where the guys you mentioned, Pippen and Rodman, were primarily really good at one.
Wait, be careful. Rodman, one thing. Pippen. This is where you got to watch the games.
What would you say Pippen's second thing? So he's an amazing defender.
Sure, he just filled the stat sheet. He was a stat sheet filler before everything. Assists, rebounds, points. I mean, he didn't put up 20-something points a game for his career. He put up 18. Oh no, he's a slasher. He scored, and he scored a 16 to 18 when the teams were scoring 82. Clay scoring 20 when the teams were scoring 115. So take a look.
I would say Pippen did it for longer. I would definitely say Pippen did it for longer, and he did it as the one. Pippen's better than Clay, and I love Clay. That's not even close. But I think that Pippen to Clay is clear.
And I'm not saying Clay won't get in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's still playing. He's still adding to his stats. He's got a lot of championships, but he's not what he was, and that happens.
He's a shell. This Warriors team, it's really a test of Kerr, man. I'm really interested to see how Kerr does with these young guys.
You know who Clay reminds me of? Although I guess it's slightly different, right? Because this guy never won championships, but he played at a real high level, and I'm a fan of him. The way you talk about Clay is the way I would talk about Don Mattingly, because the guy was the best, top 3 to top 5 player in the American League. I say the best. He won the MVP. For a 5-year period, played at a real high level for basically 9 years, but then stopped because of injury. I mean, he came out in 84 and was done at 95.
Wow.
And that was it. That's his whole
9 years?
Run. Well, that's 11. But yeah, he basically only really played for 9 years. 84 to 95.
84.
But he had a back injury. I mean, he just couldn't play. And if he lasted one more year, 96, the Yankees won a championship. So he didn't win a championship. He didn't. But for me,
You know that happened to me. So
What?
when
you got hurt,
5-year Drexel, 5 years. The year that I got hurt, the next 2 years they won the conference. And
you were holding them back, addition by subtraction.
So it was both. It was like, do you think that you were holding them back, or do you think that you set the foundation, or you're part of building the foundation that allowed them to carry it on?
I have a question for you.
I would say you'd have to ask the guys, not me.
No, clearly they were better with you. I mean, better but no championship. Better without the hardware. But so here's the thing.
It's a fun debate. Go ahead.
I got a fun debate for you because I don't think you did an NBA episode with Cajun this week. So I'm going to throw like a little 2-minute segment at you.
Cool.
We talk about parity in the league. I mentioned this particular player early on in the season as somebody I thought would be, a comeback potential. I don't think that his cards have gone up, but just because there was no one left on his team that was really going to be able to carry the water, and I just expected that he was going to have to, because all of the people who were in Toronto, like Kawhi, like Lowry, like DeRozan, they're all gone, right? Siakam is there, and the dude just dropped a 50-piece the other night. What do you think about him? Is he just a big man that gets no love? Is he, an athletic guy? Is he forgotten? Tell me a couple.
He's not forgotten. He's the guy that he's a Pippen. He's a Clay. He's a 2. He's a 2. The thing with the NBA, and I thought you were going to ask me about Scotty Barnes. I don't know if this will answer your question.
Okay, yeah, I was going to go there right next. Could
Siakam,
he be
in my
one?
opinion, is a 2. If you pair him up with a Curry, with an SGA, with a LeBron, that's his role. Because he could go and get you 40, 45, but he can't do it every night. Scotty Barnes, the thing with the NBA, my buddy, high school buddy, once said this thing to me. He's like, the NBA is so talented, you got to understand, Andrew. They're all good at everything. It's not good enough to be good at everything. You have to be great or elite at one thing. I would rather have someone who's great or elite at one thing than someone who's good at everything at that level. And Scotty Barnes is someone who's just good at everything. And it's not a knock, right? That sounds like it's a knock on him. It's like, good at everything, but you're not good enough. You just have to have – it's better in the NBA to be a specialist, to be elite at something than to be just good enough at a lot of things. You'll never win that way. And that's the issue with Scotty. He checks all the boxes, but he doesn't have that eliteness in his game.
I would like to see –
to be quite honest. They have a bunch of 2s.
I'd like to see the Mavericks get Siakam and pair him up with Luka.
Amazing fit. He'll take the load off of the number 1 guy. Some games he can be the number 1 guy, but he won't be the number 1 guy for all 95% of those games. That's what you need. You'd be fantastic. But here's the issue with the Mavs. When's the last time any free agent or trade has gone there?
None. But you'd like to think that they have a rich CEO, right? A rich owner who's going to spend the money, which I guess they don't, right? Like even let Brunson get outbid for. But you can only hear it so many times. Like Luka needs that number 2 to come play with him, win a championship, and unlock the potential of Luka. But yeah, I guess nobody goes there. Why? He
has the rich owner. It's a state where there's no state taxes. You would think that of a ton of free agents and a ton of trade bait would want to go there. Nobody goes there. I would say probably Jason Terry, Sean Marion might be like the last ones that they got. Jason Kidd. It's very, very interesting. Why does no one want to go there when on the surface, rich owner, a lot of media attention, great team, great fan base, great owner. It feels like it should be a haven to attract the best free agents. But if you go down and look, it's really interesting. And the guy they have running operations is Michael Finley. He was on the
great
Mavs
player.
team. Great player. People don't even have no clue how good Michael Finley was.
No, he was very good.
26 collectibles. Maybe the pull of the year.
That's insane. Almost, you almost wait for people to question it. And be like, is this real? Is this real?
Yarmulkes.
So what does that mean? I mean, it's interesting. That's a great card. It's a great pull. I think LeBron.
The joke was they're wearing yarmulkes. They're trustworthy. It's a joke. It's not.
Oh, So I guess it's like 1 in 61 boxes, the RPAs, because there's 120 something of them, because out of 23 and the 101.
A box is 40,000.
About, yeah.
2.4 mil
Mm-hmm.
to buy 60 boxes.
Yeah, I mean, and you probably that would mean odds you hit one, but you're obviously going to get other stuff, right? I mean, there's limited logos, there's Jordans and Kobe's, there's all kinds of cool stuff.
That's the best patch I've ever seen on that card.
That's a great patch, yeah.
And it's perfectly centered.
Yeah, it's almost as nice as the Cavs patch on the limited logos that PWCC sold last week, but that wasn't the real patch from Actual Exquisite. Ba-da-rum-bum-bum.
No,
this is a hobby,
hard,
man.
It's a tough space to police. The police officers kill each other sometimes in the space. They go after each other. Then
you know what it reminds me of? Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick. Well, it was a book first, but then it was a movie, right? And yeah, and then
my old girlfriend recommended to read the book, watch the movie. She said it's amazing.
Well, the cops were the criminals. Like his friends who are out there terrorizing people are the ones that grow up to become the cops. So it's funny you say the police are policing each other and beating each other up. It's sometimes the cops are the ones who needed to be policed and weren't early on. That was one of the little underlying interesting notes from Clockwork Orange. Yeah, man.
Luka Nation, we love you guys. Join us tomorrow on Whatnot.
So we got two shows tomorrow. We got a Whatnot at 11 o'clock, and then we got to do is PWCC has a Sunday weekly, or did they not do it because of Christmas? So then we're doing PWCC weekly auction. So you guys will hear double duty tomorrow. A little Christmas Eve special. Not a creature was stirring except for the mouse. That is Andrew Goldberg doing the PWCC weekly auction for you guys. What are you doing with the fam to celebrate Christmas Eve? Are you getting Chinese food and going to a movie?
No, we're going to sauna. We're going to sauna here, actually, because the other one is we're not going to go in this weather.
That's pretty bad.
And I'm going to watch football all day, and I'm going to chill. And I'm going to do 75 hard. I just did it today. I'm going to continue on. Even though I finish, my 75 days is today, I'm like, nah. Like, we're going to boot camp this thing because it's horrible outside. I had a 2-hour migraine after walking outside. It was that cold.
It's cold. It's definitely cold.
But we're extending hobby awards, guys. Those are going to be going through the first or through the end of the year.
Are we going to start announcing some winners soon?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. Good. And we got all kinds of fun prizes and stuff coming.
Hey, Andrew, we should kind of start this NFT project.
Yeah.
Okay. Go get him, buddy.
That's it.
Hey,
That's it. Just go.
Hobby awards. Go get him. You'll figure it. I trust you.
I dropped the ideas. You just have to run with them. Mostly because I will. Let's pull the curtain back a little bit. Last night, it's I don't want to finish this award category. Take it and run with it, or I can do it tomorrow. So I take it and I run with it, and I put my answer in. That was what I wanted to do. I decided this was what's going to happen, and 30 seconds later, I'll just do it tomorrow.
It was so
can't complain that it doesn't get done when it gets done, but it's not done to your liking. So there's the difference, a little difference that's there. That's a very Jewish mother thing to do. I know I have one.
That was one of those where I was like, should I say anything? Let it go. Should I say anything? And my heart was beating faster with each winner.
Right. I mean, the nominees so we had a category, guys, and it'll be out soon, I'm sure. But Andrew nominated. There were less people in the hobby left off the nomination than were nominated. 2/3 of the hobby were in the nominations. It was pretty amazing.
Challenge.
It was like 1-point font to fit it on there.
The challenge is people are going to complain, but I still don't know what buckets to put everybody into. That's the challenge. So it's like,
you know what I'm going to say.
It doesn't matter.
No matter what you do, there will be people complaining, right? We can try to minimize it. We'll try to do the best we can, but anyway, you are going to get complaints.
I'm okay with complaints as long as I knew I prepared. It's the same thing with the boos with Zack Wilson. Like, if you know that deep down that you didn't prepare for the game, then the boos hurt because they're right. If you're like, I left it all out there, I just wasn't good enough today, you could live with the boos. I really do believe that. But I didn't feel like I thought through it. I felt like
you're bringing the Mamba mentality to who you pick as nominees for the Luka Nation Awards. I get it. I understand You got to
Ever
leave it
since
all
I've
out there.
embraced the Mamba mentality, I am happier and I'm better because my confidence and my self-esteem is higher because I know that I'm doing the best I can.
All right. Give me something to take us out. Give me like a holiday story, something from Christmas past, the time that the three ghosts visited you and told you got to stop being such a Scrooge.
The lady
Nothing?
so it's freezing cold here,
Uh-huh.
and the lady that lives down the block was my first grade teacher in Northeast Philly. Like
Okay.
literally, she lives down the street. And I got an F in behavior. Like I was the worst student ever. Very poor discipline, disrupted the class, bit kids. She lives down the
Oh,
block. But we were driving to the gym and we saw her, so we helped her bring all her trash inside.
and
Trash
you
bins
told her
and all
you're
that.
doing 75 hard and you're the most disciplined person in the world now. And she said, congratulations. You're
I
welcome.
didn't even tell her it was me.
Oh, you didn't tell her it was you.
No, I don't look like a 7-year-old anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you look pretty different. Guys, I would actually tell you, go to the I Am Andrew Goldberg Instagram page and scroll down to some of the pictures. Look at the long, flowing, Rocky, feathered hair looking stuff from Rocky 3 as he's on the beach, living in Mexico, a carefree life. It's very different than the grizzled, frozen Philadelphia man you see in front
Yeah.
of you today.
I will say I'm not. I've lived in the Northeast my whole life, but that's in the past. Like if I had you, like if I had like $1 million, $2 million collection, I'd be like, all right, some of these need to go, and we need to get the hell out of here.
Hey,
But
go where though? Go to Boca?
Florida, Tulum.
Tulum.
I don't actually like Tulum that much. I like Playa del Carmen way more.
I mean, I
Uh,
can get tacos here.
South Carolina is an appealing place.
Yeah. Do they have Chick-fil-A in Tulum?
No,
So then it doesn't matter how much money I have or what I can buy there. I can't get what I need.
I mean
South Carolina, I'm sure I can get Chick-fil-A.
fried
That's
chicken.
a different story. Yeah, no. Specific fried chicken. You know, don't even mess around.
Love you, Luka Nation.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So, as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luka Nation.